welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today with my November wrap-up part 2.
Oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
So as this is the second part of my wrap-up, I would invite you to please watch the first part of my November wrap-up, which is linked up above. In that video, I wrapped up the first 4 books I read in the month of November. So now let's get into some stats for the month. So this month, I read 17 books overall. I had 0 1 stars, 2 2 stars, 4 3 stars, 8 4 stars, and 3 5-star books. The average rating this month was a 3.79, so really good overall. I'm very happy to have that as my average. In the month of November, I read 5,517 pages, which averaged to about 183 pages per day, which is fantastic. In regards to some other statistics for the books, I read 10 female authors and 7 male authors. 12 of the books were considered adult, 4 of those were YA, and 1 of those was middle grade.
I also wanted to mention that 8 of the books I read were by POC authors, and 9 of the books I read were from white authors.
So let's get into it. 4 of these books are featured in my most recent video, which I just posted before this one. In it, I read my friend Danny over at Current Chapter's favorite books, the first of which was Full Metal Alchemist Volumes 1, 2, and 3, written by Hiromu Arakawa, which I gave a 4 stars. Scythe by Neil Shusterman, which I gave a 5 stars. The Martian by Andy Weir, which I gave a 2 stars. And Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Nouvel, which I gave a 3.5 stars. So if you would like more in-depth reviews about these 4, I would invite you to please click the link up above for that video. So let's get into the 9 other books I read in the month of December. The first of which is So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. This is a nonfiction book that really dives into the complicated reality of the racial landscape it's primarily focused in the US, but I would say in the Western Hemisphere in general. Oluo goes into police brutality, white privilege, systemic discrimination, the Black Lives Matter movement, and a bunch of other topics that are obviously super relevant to the climate today and in general forever. So overall, I gave this book 5 stars. It was truly one of the best nonfiction books I read this year. Oluo is one hell of a writer. This book was extremely quick and interesting because of that, and especially I listened to this on audio, and the audio narrator Banny Turpin is amazing. Every book I've listened from her is exquisite. Her narration is fantastic. Oluo is very concise and careful with her words, making her overall arguments all the more powerful. She started off every chapter with a question and a personal story that really pulled me in, and I constantly felt engaged in the novel. I think this is a real must read for everyone, and I think this is especially impactful for those who are looking to begin their research and education on racism and anti-racism, which you obviously should be, quite frankly. Like I said, this was incredibly concise. Oluo's anecdotes, personal stories, and questions were constantly engaging, and I love this book, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The next book I read was for the Indigathon, and that is Alatsue by Darcy Littlebadger. This follows an America that's very similar to our own. So these kids go to high school and they eat pistachio ice cream. It's just the only thing is that there are also monsters and magical creatures that roam the land as well. And it follows a young girl named Alatsue as one of her cousins is murdered, and she is on the hunt to figure out how this happened. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. It was truly an enjoyment to read. Ellie was a really engaging main character. She is confident and she fights for what she believes in, especially when it came to defending her family. The murder mystery of the book was engaging in itself, but I think the book's overall charm really comes from the dark and whimsical atmosphere that it provides. This book is own voices for the Lipan Apache rep, and Littlebadger weaved indigenous traditions all throughout the book that worked so well despite the urban fantasy feeling that the book had. I love the aspect of storytelling that was weaved throughout the novel and the discussions about native land. There's one scene with a vampire, and if you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about, but I thought that part was excellently done. The world is fantastical, but the themes of racism and white privilege that the main character experiences is all too real. The writing was super simple, and that makes it extremely easy to get into if you're not a reader. If you're a younger reader, I think this is perfect, and I would highly recommend this for everyone. It was super fun. The next book I read was probably my favorite of the month, and that is Bunny by Mona Awad. How to describe this book is going to be a challenge. Bunny follows this woman named Samantha who is in her master's degree at a New England university. It's very heavily influenced by dark academia, and while doing her master's, she is in a group, a class filled with these girls who are all friends and they all call each other Bunny. Samantha makes jokes that they're in a cult, but the reality of that might seem all too real. The best way to describe this is like a mix of Mean Girls meets Frankenstein. It is totally weird, but totally worth the read. I literally have nothing else to say besides saying that I think this book was absolutely perfect. Mona Awad's writing, although took me a while to get into and is kind of hard to get into, I won't lie, completely captivates you by a certain point. And there was one moment I remember this book was literally giving me anxiety. I was shaking while reading it. I can't emphasize this enough without saying that this was the weirdest book I ever read. Portions of the novel are written in this like we format, so we did this, we did that, when Samantha joins the bunnies, and the overall discussions about art and our impact and feminist art is just crazy good. I think if you like feminism, if you like discussions around art and dark academia literature, and truly like some of the most fucked up things you will ever read, highly recommend this one. It's on my favorites list the moment I put it down. And then a far twist from that book, I read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain right after that. Without going into details, Anthony Bourdain was an extremely important part of my life at a certain point. His show Layover, No Reservations, Parts Unknown were there for me at truly like my darkest times. So there was definitely a like rose-colored glasses layer over my eyes, or rather ears, as I was listening to this audiobook, which was also narrated by Anthony Bourdain. So that sent me for an emotional roller coaster. Bourdain is obviously a talented writer. He's obviously a talented chef. And it's very clear that both of those things impacted him throughout his life. There were a lot of gorgeous descriptions of food that made me just want to eat exactly what he was describing, but there were also extremely gratuitous and disgusting descriptions of some aspects of the kitchen that I wish I didn't know. What had me rolling my eyes, I think, over the course of this book, which I knew going in, was Anthony Bourdain's bad boy attitude. I obviously still liked it. I liked Anthony Bourdain as a person, but it was definitely very overzealous sometimes. But at the same time, Bourdain was also a very charming and eloquent man, and I loved his voice throughout the novel, minus the clear 2000s dark comedic attitude that was sprinkled with misogyny and racism. So overall, I gave this a 3 stars. Then, just to put myself in a good mood, I read Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. This is a novella that follows Alice Oseman's Heartstopper graphic novel characters, Nick and Charlie. This novella is short and it basically goes over the fact that Nick will be going to university the year after, leaving Charlie still in high school and feeling really alone. As with most of Alice Oseman's work, I really enjoyed this. It was cute and quick and exactly what I needed to read in the moment. I think Oseman did an excellent job tackling questions about high school and leaving behind the people you love, which she always does a fantastic job doing. It also discussed mental health and insecurities, which is something that I think everybody can relate to. These characters are just the purest of pure and they always put a smile on my face. So overall, I really enjoyed this and I gave it a 4 stars. The next book I read or listened to was A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. If you've been following my channel for a couple of months, I've been getting heavily invested into Alyssa Cole's work. She's quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. This book basically follows a woman named Naledi who is studying epidemiology, which was a little too close to home for 2020, but alas. So every time I pick up an Alyssa Cole novel, I am completely sucked into the world, sucked into the romance. Cole truly writes the most realistic characters, even the character of Prince Thabiso. And even though Thabiso was a prince to a fictional country, he never felt less realistic. He never felt like he wasn't a real person. There is great chemistry between the 2 main characters, and it was just believable and cute. There were also so many other great aspects about the book that didn't focus on the romance at all, which is something I really appreciate about Alyssa Cole's writing. Naledi is a grad student studying infectious diseases, and Cole also discussed the sexism and racism that Naledi faces on a daily basis. Additionally, the power imbalances between the two main characters was also heavily discussed, which I really appreciated. There was so much good in this novel, and I can't wait to pick up more from this series, and I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. This is the second novella in the Murderbot series. This series overall follows an AI robot called Murderbot who doesn't like basically what they are doing, or rather just doesn't care. They kind of just want to sit on the sidelines and watch some trashy TV. So I won't get into what this one is about just because it is a series, but I think the plot in this one was far more interesting than it was in the first one. But these books, because they're novellas, they always leave me wanting a bit more from the novel. There was a new character named ART or Art, and I really enjoyed his addition to the novel. I think the humor between the two characters was really funny. I really enjoyed reading more of Murderbot's internal struggle of whether or not they should kill humans, and I really enjoyed the humans that Murderbot befriended in this one. I think as the story progresses, I'm going to start to enjoy Murderbot as a main character more and more. As of now, this story kind of felt like a side plot to the overall arching plot, so I'm still unable to see what the ending will be, but I am still really looking forward to discovering it, and I gave this 3.5 stars. Then to end the month, I read 2 graphic novels, one of which was Stargazing by Jen Wang. This is a really cute graphic novel that follows 2 Chinese American girls. One of them is named Moon and the other one is named Christine, and Moon and Christine are kind of complete opposites. Moon is everything Christine wants to be. She's confident, she's impulsive, she's artistic, and Christine feels like she just isn't that. So like I said, this was such a sweet read. As this is the second book I have read from Jen Wang, I know that her novels are just gonna make me smile, and that's exactly what this book did. Stargazing really made me feel all the feels. Moon and Christine are really different characters, but they're such precious kids, and the wonder that they share together is probably the most heartwarming aspect of the novel. The story is overall super wholesome, but it really did tackle themes that I think should be presented in children's graphic novels more often. I think I will definitely be suggesting this to younger readers that I know because of how overall important I feel like this novel was. I just wish I could read this from the beginning again, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read in the month of November was an arc for Dryad Volume 1. This is by Curtis Weeb and Justin Osterling. Curtis Weeb is the writer for Rat Queens, so I definitely think that if you are a fan of Rat Queens or Saga, you will definitely enjoy this series. The art was amazing, honestly, right up my alley. The story had a mix of heartwarming elements, that aspect of Saga that I really enjoy, which is 2 parents trying to leave whatever life they've had before to raise their kid in a more wholesome and healthy environment, mixed in with honestly some really badass combat. It's extremely fast-paced and engaging, so because of that I did get a tad lost in the beginning, especially because things aren't explained to you right away, but as the story progressed I really connected to it more and more, and I loved the direction it went in without going into spoilers, so I really can't wait to see where Weeb takes us next. And I ended up giving this arc a 4 out of 5 stars as well. And that's it. That is it for my November wrap up part 2. If you want to see more content from me, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. If you liked any of these books, let me know down below. If you hated any of these books and you think I'm wrong, argue with me down below in the comments because I love to debate. I don't know how to end these things, so I guess I will see you next time. Bye!